Welcome to Tarmac Life. We're here for the fun toys, cars, SUVs, utes, flights, hotels, because the journey matters too, and even the odd motorbike when we feel like living dangerously. Epic drives and unforgettable experiences, all served up with plenty of banter and zero boring nonsense.
Tonight on Tarmac Life, we review the GLA250e, Mercedes' entry-level PHEV. Mattel is putting a bunch of famous car brands on bricks. Then, Dave and Matt take a walk down memory lane at the Ellerslie Classic Car Show.
Sure, and thanks for joining us. Today we're by the beachside. How cool is this? Actually, how hot is this? But the big thing about being here is how we got here, and that was passing caravans, motorhomes, all that sort of stuff. And it did bring us to the thought of, why don't they move into the left slower lane when there's a variety of cars behind them?
There were plenty of slow vehicle lanes on our way here, and camper vans just decided to not use it. Come on, I was driving this. It just made the drive so much more boring, and even led some people to take some risky overtakes, which you just shouldn't do.
I completely agree. I mean, there's few things as frustrating as having a nice car on a bright, sunny, dry day like today, a lovely road to drive on, and then you're stuck behind a camper van who never pulls over, right?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I understand going to the beach is a leisurely thing, and usually you've got the kids on board and all that sort of stuff, so you shouldn't necessarily be in a hurry. But when you've got a big caravan and you look in that rear view mirror, or you've got a big camper van, and why, if you look there and you see about 10, 15 cars, you know they're going to be frustrated, because if you are driving a car, you would be frustrated. So just pull over. I don't know, enjoy the drive, stop, have a cup of coffee, cup of tea. You've got all the stuff on board. You might as well enjoy the ride. That's our view anyway.
But if you are going to drive like a nana and, well, camp out in the fast lane and all of that, we recommend that you do it in something a little bit stylish, a little bit luxurious, something preferably from the three-pointed star brand, something like the Mercedes GLA250e PHEV. We review that next. This particular car we have here is the second generation GLA, which received a mid-cycle facelift in 2023, where things like the sort of headlights and grille, all of that were changed and updated for this new generation. Here in New Zealand, we get the GLA200, which is the standard petrol mild hybrid, and we get this, which is the GLA250e, or the plug-in hybrid. You also get things like privacy glass, there's aluminium roof rails as well, and if you walk further down, it's got one filler on this side and actually another one on the other side. The AC charging port that gives you access to that 13 kilowatt hour battery underneath. Of course, the key tell with this being a plug-in hybrid is, of course, that cheeky little E badge sitting on the end of the GLA250. Ours also comes with the Advanced Plus package, which means things like the keyless entry and exit, also your kicker tailgate, all come included as part of that additional package. At the back here though, boot space is a little bit compromised because you have that battery, so that means underneath the floor there's no spare tire, no space saver, none of that. You get 4 run flats all around. As I mentioned before, this GLA250e is a plug-in hybrid, which means that it does have 2 powertrains working somewhere up front and across the whole of this car to drive the front wheels in particular. Since we can see it here, we might as well start with talking about the petrol engine. Now what it is a 1.3 litre 4-cylinder turbocharged unit, and it's mated to a 13 kilowatt hour battery that drives the electric system. The battery by itself gives you 65 kilometers of WLTP range, but when combined with the petrol engine, together they put out 160 kilowatts of power and 450 Newton meters of torque. Combined efficiency is something like 1.6 liters per 100 kilometers. It's worth noting that the petrol engine does draw from a smaller tank now. It's 35 liters, when previously the non-plug-in GLA has a larger one, but that's thanks to the inclusion of that battery at the rear that it has to be shrunk. Worth also noting, the rear suspension setup is changed now to be a torsion beam, again to accommodate that battery that sits in the back there. Together with that engine, drives the front wheels through an 8-speed dual clutch transmission. What Mercedes have done is give you the ability to use their dynamic select program to choose how you want to use these two powertrains, in sync or alone or what have you. There's a lot of different combinations, and you can change those through the infotainment screen on the inside of the car.
One of the things that you have here is the star pattern that goes to the part that is in front of the passenger. It is sort of highlighted by the ambient lighting that you get that goes as a sort of line on top of all of that. Of course, it's accented as well to the door cards that have that very same pattern, and then into the vents that are very pretty, a delight to interact with, and just make the whole interior feel a little bit more premium. And then, still talking about premium, you have this double pane sunroof on top of you that will bring a lot of light into the interior, that will be shining across all the chrome bits that you have scattered around the cabin. And then on the seats themselves, they are of this Artico man-made leather, which is the naming that Mercedes is going with for this sort of polyurethane kind of material. They are supportive. They have a thigh extension that is always welcome for those that are a little bit taller, and it is easy enough to find a very good driving position. It doesn't feel like you are sitting on top of the car, at least not on the front row, because at the back you do get a lot of space, yes, but as soon as you jump in, it definitely does feel like you are very elevated because of the angle that you have in your legs. And then I finally can go full circle and talk about the thing that Matt gave me the segue for, which is the dynamic button that you have here. You use this to interact with the driving modes for the car, and most of those things will then have some sort of reflection in the screen that sits in the middle of the dashboard. And then when you press it, we then see that very familiar screen in which you can change different settings as to how the car is working with you in terms of its driving modes. What we will see here is that you can go into an all-electric mode, which in this case is unavailable at this point because we have depleted the whole battery, but then you can go into a hybrid mode that will make the car make the best decisions in terms of what to use and when to change from electric to internal combustion. Then if you are about to run out of battery, or you want to conserve that energy as you are approaching a low emission zone, you can then go into this battery hold mode here, which is always very helpful, even though it might not necessarily be holding all the battery all the time, which we'll discuss a little bit more on the drive. Then we see Sport, of course, will use the most out of the two systems to give you all the power at all the time, and then Individual, that will allow you to customize it further so that you can really make it your own in terms of how you want the drive to work, the steering, the ESP, and all of that. One of the big things is that by using the commands that you have on the right spoke, you can use this home menu here to flick between those screens that we have come to love from Mercedes. Of course, it gives you so much customization, and it really makes the car feel a little bit more special as you are going from understated to sport or classic, or maybe even having just a full screen for the navigation in front of you.
Okay, for tonight's Tarmac Talk, we're talking classics.
And what better place to do it than the Ellerslie Classic Car Show? And this year's theme is Icons of the Screen.
So we're going to wander around, take a look at our favourite cars, and also see how they mix in with some of our favourite shows. We'll also chat to a few people along the way.
So kicking things off, we've run into firstly an old friend and of course a local film, Pork Pie, of course following the coast of New Zealand from top to bottom. And as you'll remember last year, we actually went on the Pork Pie run where we met Kevin over here. Now Kevin, we noticed you've got a new charity that you're supporting. Tell us about Lifelight.
Yeah, the Pork Pie charity run's just chosen Lifelight, which is the fixed-winged aircraft side of the Westpac fundraising group. And part of our goal is to raise their identity.
And on top of that, you have a run coming up next year, I believe, once every 2 years.
We have the Pork Pie 2017 coming up, and registrations go live on that in 6 weeks' time, folks.
Alrighty, make sure you keep an eye out for that. And by the way, for our viewers, Dave has actually driven this car, but he wasn't the one to do this. Or maybe he was, he won't tell. So I can see an Italian job poster and some minis, but where's Mark Wahlberg and Charlize Theron?
There you got your gold. Look who we've run into, our show sponsors, Fleetline. Tell us what you do.
So Fleetline are very proud to be New Zealand's only owned and manufactured fiberglass canopy company. We also do a vast range of commercial vehicle fit-outs to suit any requirements.
There you go. So get your canopies and your fit-outs done with these guys.
Now, I absolutely love the E-Type, but a Jaguar in car trouble? The story just writes itself.
Of course, if we're talking movies and movie franchises, there's none really better than the Bond movies, and that of course means Aston Martin. That's my worst Bond movie or Sean Connery impression.
You'll be using this Aston Martin DB5 with modifications.
All right, so we're here with Jared, and we're standing in between a Ferrari 512 and a Holden. Now, Jared, what do these two cars have in common?
What they've got in common is these are both desirable classic cars that we're auctioning live at the moment on Collecting Cars, which is the #1 place, so we say, to sell classic and enthusiast cars from New Zealand all around the world.
All right, and I believe you guys did some pretty big business last year as APAC, as a region.
Yeah,
tell us about that.
So look, we've been growing pretty heavily in Australia and New Zealand. We sold over $150 million worth of cars just in our Asia Pacific region last year.
Okay.
You know, everything from classic Italian metal, Australian classics. We've got GT3s and Porsches, 911s. We've got, you know, anything that people would think is interesting and might be difficult to sell in New Zealand. We're here to help find a home for it somewhere else.
Very cool, and clearly there's something for everyone.
Exactly. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jared.
Cheers.
Now, just as Die Hard is a Christmas movie, Bonnie and Clyde is basically a love story. Just ends very badly, but have a look at these.
Here's a film from my youth, the Transformers movies, and the first one featured a Camaro that went from that one to this one, of course driven by Sam Witwicky, the memorable character.
What we have here is the Bullet Mustang, the fastback, with one of the coolest guys to ever be on the silver screen, which is Steve McQueen. And over here is the Eleanor Mustang, and I have to be quick because that'll be gone in a minute. And over the back there is the General Lee. Cute, cute. Gotta love those Duke boys.
Magnum PI, whether you like the original one or the newer remake, there's something for you here. Both Ferraris, and not to miss the Robin Masters number plate.
Now, to keep all these classics in tip-top condition, they are cleaned and polished and actually made pristine with Maguire's, that's for sure.
Yeah, Maguire's has been around now for 125 years, so a big celebration this year.
You don't look that old.
Well, I'm not, but the brand itself has been around since before automobiles were a thing, so.
Yeah, they started off polishing wood, wasn't it?
Yeah, furniture polish.
Furniture polish, then moved on to carts.
Yep, horse
and then horse and carts, and now cars, and every car that should be out there should have some of this clear polish or fine stuff on it.
Absolutely.
So another Hollywood icon, which is James Dean. He owned a 356 Speedster and also a 550 that he died in, car aptly named The Little Bastard.
Alright, so obviously I had to talk about the Alphas here, and this one is pretty special. So out of all the Alphas that are featured in Bond films, the GT-V6 was the only car to be driven by Bond himself in Octopussy. This one in particular is special as well because it's also had Jeremy Clarkson in the car, and the GT-V6 is his personal favorite. So it's not just movies and TV shows, but we have to share the spotlight on music videos. And what better place to start than a Rover SD1, which featured in the music video for Don't You Want Me Baby by the Human League. And if you follow me over there, you'll find a green Austin Healey 3 liter, which was in the music video for Tears for Fears' Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Behind us there are a few Cobras and a GT40, obviously featured in Ford versus Ferrari. I mean, what a great film.
And also, don't forget that the AC Cobra was also in Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, and that is a massively brilliant film from England, of course, and featuring Vinnie Jones, who came out with the classic line, "It's been emotional." Thanks for watching Tarmac Torque.
Jimny 5-door from Suzuki. Epic destinations. Legendary journeys.
It starts like any drive. Familiar road, familiar view. In a land that defies ordinary, so does the drive.
All right, and here is the news. Now, firstly, I want to talk about bricks.
What, cars on bricks? Or?
Not quite. So, until now, if you wanted to own your favorite supercars or dream cars in brick form, you were confined to what Lego offered. But more recently, Mattel have brought their brick shop into the sort of equation, and they've come out with a whole bunch of new brands, and you know more about this, so tell us, what's new?
Well, firstly, I just want to say I love the Lego stuff. I know we are talking Mattel, but the Lego stuff, I'll have a quick story about this. I had a Defender, picked up one. My son decided in infinite wisdom just to open up every bag and empty into this big pile of stuff. Took me a week to do, but it was so satisfying, apart from the fact that he put the last brick in and claimed it was him. Took me a week. But anyway, yeah, but Mattel they've gone and picked up Lamborghini, Aston Martin, and even Toyota. It's kind of weird, but they've sort of gone for that spectrum of bringing to life different brands and collaborated with those. So I actually want to get my hands on one of those kits and keep my son away from it and see how we get on. But it is an interesting thing.
And not to forget Honda, because a friend of mine has gotten one of the NSXs and it looks really cool. It is a little bit of a departure from what Lego had been doing. It is a little bit more round, a little bit less bricky, and it has a lot of moving parts that the Lego cars don't have. So it's not the same. It is still very much about building your own car, but it adds that differentiation on top of what Lego does. But love it.
And the pricing will be different as well, I would assume, because, you need an arm and a leg. You almost have to buy a supercar for a Lego kit now.
If I'm not mistaken, there was actually an Acura NSX as well, although I know Honda and Acura are the same company effectively.
Oh, yeah.
But moving the conversation to North America, I've got to raise the point of a whole batch of Ferraris, 46 if I'm not mistaken, recently went to auction, and a majority of them were yellow. This is the Bachmann collection, for those who know. And they all set records. I mean, the Enzo went for nearly 18 million US dollars. There was a 288 GTO, F40, F50, LaFerrari, the whole host of dream cars. But the thing I want to raise is that all of these cars had 150 miles or less. I think the most was one of the 80s Ferraris, which had 2,000 miles on it. And you have to ask the question of, all of these were designed as driver's cars, not as garage queens. So is it an injustice to just leave them parked up?
It's horrendous. I'm torn though. being a businessman, I guess you want to go, okay, here's an investment. You spent $1 million, $2 million, whatever it is, 15 million or whatever it is. Do you want to drive it and have all the risk of it being damaged, the wear and tear and stuff like that? But then I'm then tormented by the fact of, should it be stuck in a garage and nobody's seeing it, or a museum? I know you don't drive a Rembrandt, but gee, I don't know. I think there should be distinct, cars should be driven, in my mind.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that there is a big point to be made about the fact that you just said you cannot drive a painting. And usually what you buy and then you expect it to grow over time are like stocks or an investment property. A car is supposed to do something else. Yes, you can admire it, you can drool all over, especially if it's yellow like this, as we were talking about. But it is meant to be driven. And you know that at a certain point when the car is bought in those conditions, it's not going to be driven. It's just going from one garage to the other, which is a little bit of a shame when you're considering that those kind of machines. It's just sad.
Okay, does the equation change though if it is, say, a 1960s Ferrari 250 GTO, which then sold for nearly 40 million US dollars? That's like driving, you know, an Auckland street down the road.
I'm still stuck on that fence and leaning towards it. Yes, it should be driven. It's, even if it goes to a classic event like the Ellerslie and stuff like that, and it's driven around the car park, it needs to be experienced. And most of these you can't even touch or feel. They're roped around, and that for me is horrendous. You might as well have a poster or a picture of it. I don't know, get Rembrandt to paint it, and there you go.
And this GTO sort of sets a different narrative to the whole thing with the auctions, because the number, even though it is outrageous at 40 million, was a little bit below what were the initial expectations for how much it would sell for, which then just sort of shows that we might be seeing a little bit of a change in the public that is now getting access to these cars and what they are actually interested in. Of course, some people that are sort of around my age but on a completely different tax bracket are now getting access to the funds that allow them to get Enzos, F50s, and all the things that I grew up sort of having as posters. And of course it does reflect in the figures that we have been seeing. So yeah, to the classics, I guess.
Get an OnlyFans account, you know, that would be a reason for it. I'd pay not to view that, actually. Anyway, speaking of things that are not classic but should be driven, these guys pick up their Mercedes GLA250e review now.
Interestingly, when I first picked this up, both the tank and the battery were full. So essentially what I did was put it into hybrid mode and let the car decide best what I should do in terms of using which powertrain. And what I noticed it was doing was favoring that electric powertrain very heavily in pretty much every single scenario, except when I would put my foot pretty much flat down to try and get into a gap in traffic, or, you know, onto the motorway on-ramp, which is when that petrol engine would kick in. But then after that, since I have depleted the battery, what it's been doing is basically working with that depleted battery, charging it up a little bit, 0.5%, and then using that 0.5% instantly where it can, and then we're back to square one again, which is interesting behavior, I have to say. And I haven't actually been able to figure out how to charge the battery using the engine through any of the programs and things.
Yeah, one of the things that we might have said in our previous PHEV review is that not all PHEVs are made the same, right? They will use the same architecture or idea, but to achieve different results at the end of the day. Some of them will try to do performance, some of them will try to do refinement, or maybe focus on economy. At the end of the day, it looks like what Mercedes was going for is that idea that if you have the discipline to charge it up, even though it is with AC only every day, you can drive in EV only mode, achieve all the refinement for this EV powertrain, and then if you need to use the ICE engine, you can go the extra mile, quite literally. But the fact that it is not holding the charge at the very end of the battery, as many of the competition or the competitor cars will do, just shows that they really want you to use all the battery and then sort of get away with using the power of the ICE engine in case you need. Yes, it could be the case that when looking at the EV range figures alone, or maybe even the capacity of the battery, there are other players out there. There are topping up these figures quite literally with larger figures, but they might, well, not be this sort of size, which maybe you don't need a 7-seater SUV or a really, really large SUV. And of course, they don't come with this badge and the premiumness and the build quality and the solid feeling that this brings. So that will probably be the decisive factor when you are cross-shopping this against other PHEVs.
It's all of that stuff, it's hard to put a price on that, right, as an offering above just focusing on the powertrain rather as the entire experience.
Yeah, I agree. And it's actually a good point that you raise about the value proposition, because at 93 grand, this is not exactly a value proposition. And it all comes as a response to having that badge there in front of you. There will be other PHEVs out there, but not all of them will have tech that is this good to interact with, materials that are this fancy and sort of solid feeling. This comes with a big price tag, and if this is on the list of your non-negotiables or what you are seeking when going for a new car, if you're looking for a PHEV, this might end up in your short list. And then another elephant that we have in the room now with the change for the rear suspension architecture, of course, it moving to a torsion beam might add insult to injury when it costs as much as it does. But at the end of the day, a rear suspension architecture like this does not necessarily mean that it is a bad car to drive. It all comes down to the purpose of what it is trying to be and how it is tuned. On everything that we have been driving, such as these speed bumps like this, there are usually a death sentence to a badly tuned torsion beam, and it's absolutely not what we're getting, right? It feels very composed, very easy and predictable. I would say that it almost feels like a non-issue.
Introducing the all-new Subaru Forester with next-generation strong hybrid and over 1,000 kilometer range. The all-new Subaru Forester. Get ready to own the road and conquer the wild. Have it all-wheel drive with Subaru.
So that was really interesting. It has a Mercedes look about it, being a Mercedes, and actually has a Mercedes drive about it, and also comes with a plug. What's the downside?
Well, I think the idea here is to give their customers an entry into the Mercedes plug-in hybrid range, and that's what this GLA does. And again, like with many Mercedeses, it's very much dependent on the options that you choose, right? And our car came with like the progressive line rather than the AMG line, and all of those things affect the look of it. So I think if you are after a plug-in hybrid with that 3-pointed star badge on it, this is the first rung on that ladder, and that's where the appeal of this car sits.
So there you have it, an entry-level Mercedes with a plug. Mattel have shown us how to build, quite literally, a supercar garage, and also a couple of classics have been talking classics. See you next week.
Kia ora and thanks for joining us as these cars drive past.
Yeah, just in time for the Christmas parade. And there's another bunch of cars coming that way. You couldn't have picked the worst time to press go. So that looked really good. It looked like a Mercedes, drove like a Mercedes by the looks of things. I said look again, I probably shouldn't do that.
But if you are going to learn...
Are you just standing by the thing?
Oh, stop it, because it's rolling.
Are you rolling? Why were you rolling?
That's a pretty Mustang.
So there you have it, a Bentley Mercedes.
Yeah, a Bentley Mercedes, a Bentley Benz.
You should probably just like exist here so that I can take a frame for the...
Oh yes, exist here.
Yeah. Okay, I have existed.
We should just exist here. Sometimes when the translation's in his mind.
Yeah, exist here.
It's pretty damn steep, Dan. High 4T hybrid intelligent four-wheel drive. Only at GWM. Go with more.